Welcome to the Cosmic Connection. This is your place to explore the beauty and order of the cosmos.
And your connection to it all.
My name is Amanda Walsh, and I'm the founder of Astrology Hub.
And I'm Rick Levine, your cosmic navigator.
Now let's dive in.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody, we are here for a very special and different episode of the Cosmic Connection. I'm here with, Rick Levine and Jenn Zahrt, and we are at the ISAR conference right outside of Denver in Colorado, and this is a huge astrology conference. This is like astrology heaven, and so we're just talking...
Or purgatory for some people.
I mean, come on, it's amazing. So basically, we're talking about conferences, why they're so important, why we go to the effort of coming to them, why people go to the effort of putting them on, and how they can really benefit our lives and really the practice of astrology as it moves forward. So I would love to hear your stories about astrology conferences and what they've done for you and how it's changed your...
I'll be very brief. The first conference I went to, I was living in Minneapolis. St. Paul is the home of Llewellyn, astrology publisher of magic, astrology, tarot, a whole bunch of other stuff. And they put on an event, which was a weekend event called Gnosticon, like Gnostic, Gnosticon. And in one weekend, I met, Rob Hand and Noel Till and some giants who have now passed, Charles Emerson and Charles Jane, and Marcia Moore, who wrote the Jacqueline Onassis book, who actually did a real-life regression on Noel Till, which was just crazy.
Wow.
But the whole thing was there were a few hundred people there, and everyone was talking astrology. And the people whose books you had been that I had been reading, all of a sudden were there in the flesh, and it's like, oh my God, this person actually exists. And then you're actually talking to them and having a conversation with them, and it's like,
It's amazing how starstruck that we can be of different astrologers, and then how, I guess it's when you're reading people's materials and you're seeing them online, and just to meet them in person, it's like, wow.
It's different.
Yeah.
I've had people come up to me here who were like, okay, I'll talk to you when you let me step down off of whatever the pedestal is you have.
Yeah.
It's like, I've been watching you online for years and I'm so excited to be, and it's like, just touch.
Yeah.
I'm real. Okay,
Yeah.
now let's go on. But
I guess
it's exciting.
And it's
exciting.
a really intimate experience to read someone's book or to listen to their podcast. And it's like people are getting to know you on a very deep and intimate level.
Yeah, what about you? What was your first?
It's definitely different with astrology too, because what you're being transmitted is knowledge of your own soul
So it's
from that
intimate
person's
there.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
So my first astrology book was Alan Oken's Complete Astrology, and my first conference was in New Orleans in 2012, and there he was poolside, and I couldn't believe that he was there, and I'm like, what are the chances in my life I would get to be around Alan Oken and hear him having a casual conversation with someone, and that he was like a real person and not this like titan. I mean, he still is. He's not with us anymore, so rest in peace, Alan. But that experience to like see that, astrologer who had changed my experience of the world. And it's like, that's what you get when you come to these conferences. You join the community. You're able to interface with people and talk to them about so many cosmic ideas. And like, how often do we do that every day?
It was a conference where I met you, Rick.
That was at
UAC, yeah.
And UAC, we're at ISAR, which is short ISAR for the International Society for Astrological Research, one of three organizations that were founded around the same period of time as a backlash, is that the right word, to the AFA, which was a viable organization, but a for-profit organization, and the community had grown enough that there were people who felt we needed to have something of our own. And within a couple of years, ISAR, NCGR, which is the National Council for Geocosmic Research, and AFAN, which was meant to be a play on AFA. This is AFAN, and it's the Association for Astrological Networking. These three organizations were founded and eventually came together in an organization called the United Astrology Congress. And UAC, the United Astrology Congress, has now reformed legally into the United Astrology Conference. And that's made up of a board of a representative and 2 elected people from each of the organizations that the nonprofit organizations that own the nonprofit UAC, that comes together once every 3, 4, or 5 years to create a mother of all mother conferences. And half the proceeds of that conference get divided amongst the sponsoring nonprofits, and the other half gets divided amongst all the people who are speaking at the conference. So it's very much a community-owned event.
Wow,
And
that's awesome.
it's very awesome the way that works. This conference, ISAR, ISAR puts on a conference typically every 2-3 years or so. This has been more like 5 years because of that little delay of March of 2020, which lasted 2 years. and so this one's very overdue. This was supposed to be in August of 2019, then scheduled for August of 2020, and now here finally in late August of 2021, we finally get together and hug each other and say hi.
Oh my God.
And it really is something different when you're hanging out with people, and it's not just for newbies coming into astrology being starstruck by the people.
Right.
It's
It's for
us,
us.
who get to hang out with each other and have
totally.
conversations. I mean, I've had some of the most amazing classes at conferences like this that were not inside of a classroom, but we're simply talking with 5 people who are experts about something. Last night in the lobby, I just sat for an hour or so talking with Dennis Harness, who's a PhD psychologist, Vedic astrologer, very well respected in the field, and David Cochran, who I know has been on some of your programs at Astrology Hub. And the 3 of us were geeking out about very geeky things that were just, it's very exciting because we are each learning from each other
Oh my
always.
God. I wish we were there with a camera and a microphone and we could just be flying on the wall.
Amanda, that's what you do for a living.
I
You're
know,
always
that's
you're
what I'm
always
saying.
there.
More,
You're always
more.
there with a camera and a microphone.
That is true. Okay, so you're both giving talks, right? At this conference. What are you talking about?
I'll be talking about the magic of pattern returns, which is when you have a configuration in your chart that is happening by transit in the sky, but it may or may not be configured to your chart by aspect.
Okay.
And it allows you a certain measure of action that you might not be aware of, but if you can pinpoint when it's going to happen, you have a lot of go power behind
And
that.
being the geek that I am, because I'm totally geeky, with particular interest in the person who came up with this idea, who was the man who Kepler College was named after, and David Cochran software, Kepler software. And I love the term pattern reoccurrence because
I say pattern return.
a pattern return.
Yeah.
Kepler called them
Recurrence transits.
recurrence transits, and Robert Blaschke, who I know that you know Robert's work, called them holographic transits.
But everyone knows about the Saturn return,
Right.
so I'm trying to popularize the idea of pattern return. Because
Pattern
that's what we're
return.
looking
So
for.
it's like this. Let's say that you were born with the Sun square Saturn.
Yes.
All right. Every time the Sun square Saturn,
With Saturn on the same side as the Sun.
Saturn on the exact same pattern.
That's your pattern return.
So-
For that aspect.
So you could have a lot of different pattern returns happening
Every year.
But it
Oh.
doesn't necessarily make an aspect to your Sun Saturn or anything else in your chart.
It's just
It's
it's a
just
hum.
the
fact that it's
exact
happening.
same configuration
Yep,
that was
in the
when
sky,
you were born.
as
It's
you
like
were
they're
born.
playing your song on the radio, but it's in a different key, but
Yep.
you know it's your song.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, amazing!
It's
So
super fun.
you've been working with these like in your life and with your students and stuff. And what does it mean for someone when they're having a pattern return?
I'll quote Robert Blaschke on this just to keep it short. He says that when we look at our transits, that's the timeline, and it's almost like this fatedness of, okay, I'm moving along, I'm a ball, the wind speed is this, here's where I'm going to be.
Right.
And the pattern return is your free will. And it's this other modicum of spatial relationship
Think
that
of-
allows you,
think of the
not
sol-
the when, but more like the where am I going to operate this on? Yeah.
Think of the solar return,
Yes.
which is a birthday.
Yeah.
What's the predominant thing that kids do on their birthday? What
You
happens?
blow out the candles and you make a wish.
Do you know why? It's because when anything returns in the cosmos, that is what you have in your chart. It's a moment when you get to program yourself. And so the idea of blowing out a candle and making a wish is like, it's a magic thing that when you light a candle to concentrate will, you blow it out. I don't know if you know the book Zen and the Art of Archery, but it's not about archery.
You've talked about it.
It's basically you can't hit the target until you let go of the arrow. And so blowing out a candle is a way of freeing the energy, but it's the same thing it's a return.
Wow.
But we're not taught to see them because computers don't just calculate that. You know what I mean? We
you
can look
have
at the transits. And
You
say,
have
this
to
and this.
know your patterns, and then you have to be able to see that they're happening in the sky.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although you can with some software say, tell me for 40 years every time, Mercury transit or Mercury conjuncts, whatever.
Right. Okay, what are you talking on?
So I'm doing a post-conference workshop along with our friend Ann Orderly, but we're each doing separate post-conference workshops. Ann Orderly, Stephen Forrest, Lynn Bell. I'm missing someone who will kill me because I can't remember who, but but mine is it's pretty much nuts and bolts astrology. The title is something like integrating the outer planets in natal chart work and timing. And so we're going to basically go from Jupiter through Pluto and talk about not just the archetypes, but how they work in charts. And then I got about 20 charts of people who have Sun or Moon conjunct one of those planets. And then we're going to pick 3 or 4 charts from people in the room and look at them real time.
Fun.
So that's the workshop. My talk on the conference schedule is a talk that Lauren Albandian, who's the director of the conference, said only you could come up with the name of a talk like this, and only you could give it. And the name of the talk is The Disintegration of the Boundary Between Physical and Metaphysical Reality.
Wow. That
And
sounds
we've talked a little bit about this on Cosmic Connection from different points of view.
Right.
But it's why the Saturn doesn't have the same power. I'm not saying that I doubt your power, dude. I mean, Saturn doesn't like it when you mess with him.
Right.
So it used to be that Saturn was like finality. There was nothing beyond Saturn other than the fixed stars on the fixed crystal. It was like that was the end of the road. Saturn was the period at the end of the book. Now it's a semicolon in the middle of the next paragraph. Because we know that death is not the end. We know that really it's just the beginning of where Pluto kicks in and does the deeper transformational work. And so as a culture, as we develop more and more digital, electronic, higher frequency technologies, we buzz at a higher frequency, and we're basically moving from a very low-level vibration. If you think of the traditional astrologies, it's all about things that are physical. And now we've moved into realms that are totally meta to physical. And it's a much deeper dive, but it's a fascinating topic that I've been messing around with for a few years now, and so this is my latest thinking on this particular topic.
Love it. Love it.
It involves reincarnation. I mean, because reincarnation is simply a non-physical consciousness.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, the space, we think of reincarnation and we forget in order to be reincarnated, you have to be disincarnated.
That's
You know,
true.
we call it death.
Again,
but-
with the letting go of the candle and the arrow. Right?
So at disincarnation, we go into some state. And then at reincarnation, we come back. And although it's always been part of the various mystical traditions, that whole concept now has filtered into the public enough that most people think, maybe not most, I don't know what the statistics are here, maybe 47.32%, no, believe that death is simply a doorway, as Helen Keller said, into another room.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and so we as a culture, as a species, not as a culture, are moving from physical to metaphysicalness, and it impacts how we do astrology.
love it. So fun. Maybe we can talk about some more of this on the Cosmic Connection sometime. Yeah?
Deal.
Okay. And you're doing another talk.
Yes, I am, and it ties actually into what you're talking about because it's about posthumous astrology. So it's the idea also, if we spin what you just said a little further, we get a chart and then we die, but our chart keeps working after we die.
The classic
And
one for this is the chart of Karl Marx and following the Russian revolutions and the Chinese. I mean, that's the one that astrologers who have messed with this.
It zings.
It zings.
Yes, but I'm talking about it also in terms of Hellenistic Time Lord techniques and zodiacal releasing. So you can see someone's eminence after death.
Wow.
To decide maybe for, like, example, when to curate a gallery exhibition of their work.
Whoa. Fascinating.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So timing out.
And in fact, you look at movies like Gandhi and movies about people, they often happen when someone's having a Pluto conjuncting their sun, transiting Pluto conjuncting their sun, and there's some power.
Yeah.
And,
Amazing.
it's just.
So I look through various Hellenistic Time Lord techniques and different charts of people to see when they're going to be eminent again, but you can do it with all kinds of astrology.
Well, and that's such an amazing way to illustrate the idea that we are energy and that our energy lives beyond our physical form.
But the question I have, hearing what Rick just said, was if we get a chart and then we die and our chart lives on, but we get reincarnated, the chart we had still lives on, though we're reincarnated.
Well, this is an easy one.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about reincarnation as a linear event, that's an anthropomorphic view that makes something that has totally no connection with linearity. All the mystical traditions agree that without physical form, there is no sense of time. You know, I mean, you can state it in lots of different ways. It's often stated, the Buddhists, I think, state it the most clearly, and that is everything that's ever happened and everything that ever will happen is happening now. So reincarnation is still in this moment. And it's and the way I look at it, and I've written a poem that I'm sure that was in the collection that we did on Foundations 1, Level 1, but it's when the radio breaks, the broadcast station hasn't gone off the air. Doesn't matter what happens to the person's, it's like, we're like radio resonant. You talk about, pattern returns and resonance in a chart. We're picking up on the radio station. We're not that same person reincarnated. Sorry, that's bullshit. It's simplified.
No,
I don't mean you were saying that.
No, yeah.
But that energy is out there. We pick up on it and we take it as if it is us, and in some ways it is, but it doesn't make that energy go away.
But you're also saying that energy was always already there.
Yeah. and always
So
and
Karl
always
Marx
will.
existed before Karl Marx existed, really.
Okay, so in my Patreon apprentice program, one of the things that I do is once a month we bring the whole group together, and I bring in a mystery guest, and it's a chart without a name on it and a date on it of someone, and last month I brought in the chart of Robert Downey Jr. And the class did an amazing job on him, but I don't know how you could miss. I mean, he has a Mars-Uranus-Neptune conjunction, or Mars-Uranus-North Node conjunction, kind of like what we just had.
Oh,
similar.
like a recurrence transit?
Well, not the same, because it was Mars-Uranus node, not.
No, that's
Mars.
what we just had in Taurus.
Okay, you're right. All right. So he just signed for Iron Man 4. So
See? That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Right?
So he is an Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. The ancient tradition of metal, primary metals to planets is Mars is iron ruled. He's Iron Man. Fine. He came to power as an actor by playing the role of Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
We did a chart with him and Charlie Chaplin after we told who it was. I had Charlie Chaplin's chart right there, and you could see the resonance. Reincarnation, no, they were alive for a few years at the same time, but certainly a continuity.
Yeah.
But then I found the chart of the Marvel first Iron Man comic that was published 2 years prior to Robert Downey Jr. being born. And the chart resonance is crazy.
Wow.
So,
that would have been a Mars return, right? Some kind of Mars.
It wasn't, though.
quite,
But
yeah.
it wasn't exactly 2 years. But
So what are you guys trying to say?
it's all.
It's awesome. And when you come to conferences, you can have these conversations
it's
for 24 hours a day, for 5 days straight.
Oh my God.
It's
No,
like a fire
Amanda,
hose.
we have two choices. It's either all connected or it's not.
Yes,
Period.
exactly.
And how does it all work? It's all connected.
Right.
Obviously.
Right. Oh my gosh. What do you love the most about having dedicated your life to astrology?
You go.
It's been my only life, so I don't actually know what I can say. It's an amazing way to connect to our ancestors and the future, and being able to be in tune with what's going to happen. Maybe not from like a specific, this exact thing will happen, but being able to be more embodied and present for the world, because you're not anxious or worried. You're sort of really able to kind of tune into what could be coming, and then also spread that to others, which I find the most helpful, is to just be present and here and like let people know like it's going to be all right.
Are you surrounded by people who get that and get you, or are you like the total outlier?
I think it depends on which environment. I love traveling, so sometimes I'm sort of, hiding in plain sight.
Yes.
But I do try to create a life where I can have these kinds of conversations regularly.
Right.
And more that's becoming normal, I'm finding, and I'm thinking like there are a lot of people who are opening their minds to what astrology is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just me saying this or something.
No.
Because I'm in the center of it,
I would agree with
think
you,
they're
but
coming.
I wouldn't necessarily give them. The way you phrase it sounds like they're doing it because they're conscious and they want to do it. I think a lot of people's minds are being opened.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I'm not saying that what you said is wrong.
Right.
I think it's a combination. I think that things are happening so fast, and with the availability of good astrology, or astrology good and not good, on the internet, it's there for people.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it's like I remember years ago some news reporter asked the Dalai Lama, so if you weren't the Dalai Lama, what would you be? And he just laughed. That was it.
That's a crazy question. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what you asked us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially.
in a
You
way.
can't really see outside of it.
I mean, and there's a part of me, and I say this because I felt this since my late teenage years, but I know of a dozen other astrologers who has had the same thing, and that is I never really learned astrology. I feel like I just kind of remembered it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I learned it way faster than I theoretically should have.
Right.
Right.
It's just like as I soaked it in, I just always knew a little bit more than whatever it was I was learned in that moment.
You're like that too, huh, Jen?
Yeah, it's a true calling. I think it
Right.
really is a way of reading the world and then being in the world.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't think every astrologer I have interviewed says that about their experience.
But
But
many
a
do.
lot of them do.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. And it's something I know I haven't done. Like it's why I know that I'm a different species than you two.
And
because
that's
it hasn't
okay.
been a remembering at all. It's
Yeah.
still like every single time I talk to you, I'm learning something new. I'm relearning something I probably already knew at some point, but like very differently. And it's just like it's something that's absorbing.
Okay, I hear you, but every time I talk to her, I learn something new.
True,
I mean,
true,
I mean,
yeah.
and this person, that person, and
yeah.
that person.
Well, and we have to remember there's many ways to be an astrologer,
Right,
right? And
that
I
is
think
true.
a lot of times when we think about professional astrology, that's
Right.
somebody who counsels people.
Yes.
That's not true.
Yeah.
We have
No, not true at all.
award-winning people in the top of the field who haven't seen a client since 1984.
Actually,
Right? I mean,
actually, one of the most important astrologers from a standpoint of developing the academic sensibility of the community itself is someone who we both know differently, but that would be Nick Campion.
that's who I just was mentioning without mentioning his
Oh,
name.
I didn't know that.
He hasn't seen a client since 1984.
Nick Campion is a PhD historian whose work is about astrology and culture and the history of astrology. And when he was first learning astrology, because he was fascinated by it, he did one reading. And he's British. He said, I was so embarrassed I would never do another reading again.
What?
But when I stayed at his home, I'm telling you what year this is, 1999, for a week. The first night there, I was sitting at dinner with Wendy, his wife, and now his wife, and him. And I said, so Wendy, what's your chart like? And she says, I don't know. I said, wait, you live with like one of the great astrologers in the world. How do you not know your chart? He goes, he doesn't do people's charts. I go, you want to get your chart done? She says, you're going to do it? I said, no, he'll do it. Just declare yourself a nation state.
So he does do the charts of countries.
That's
and
what he
world
does.
events, right?
What's called mundane
Astrology.
mundus, the world.
Yeah, and I bet there's a lot of financial astrologers who have never
also-
done
Yeah,
readings
exactly,
either
right?
way that we think of readings.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And I know
fascinating.
medical astrologers
Right.
who only use it in the back room to look at the chart of the client or the patient, but don't necessarily tell the patient that they're doing their charts.
Right. Like, how did you diagnose my secondary infertility? Well, medieval astrology is very good at doing that. Doctors in the Western tradition are not.
Wow.
Right? So there's all of these ways in which we can use it.
And
but
there's people who do just simply pure research. I mean, there's lots of different people than counseling astrologers.
and what I would say is you're actually an oral historian of astrology because you're gathering lived realities from so many people in this community.
Oh my
and it's
gosh,
a very important thing.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank
It's a
you,
very
Jen.
important thing.
Okay, what's the most surprising thing about the practice of astrology?
Oh, I think I know that. It's that how many astrologers think they know more than they do.
It surprises you.
It always surprises me that I know astrologers who can answer questions faster than you can ask them. And we may, through astrology, know a little more than the person on the street who doesn't know astrology. But it's not as simple as it sounds. We've had these discussions many times, and astrologers will go, oh, this and that just means this. And I have hair on my back, and it goes up when I hear that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So, but it surprises me. It's almost like this. It's the same fault of modern practitioners of modern medicine, modern science, and fundamental religions. When you practice a fundamental religion, you think you know more than you do.
Right.
And I'm not saying we don't know a lot, but we don't know as much as we think we do.
Wow.
So to pivot in a different direction,
Yeah.
if you totally surrender yourself to the study of astrology, the surprising thing in my journey has been when astrology coughs up a new path right where I didn't expect it, that leads like to this other engagement with what my soul needed to know as just a practitioner and someone who can bring this to someone else, and then someone will show up and they'll need just exactly what astrology brought to the doorstep. And I can't explain how that happens, but
that's
but
true.
just the meandering through, keeping your mind open, learning new techniques, and at conferences having conversations with people who see things totally different than you,
Right.
and they'll give you some nugget, and you'll say, oh, I should look that up when I'm home or something, and you start looking into it, and you add this like technique to your toolkit, and then it just becomes this like, it's like astrology knows, oh, this is what you need next. And it's like it's sentient.
The other surprising
it's
thing,
alive. I still think
the other surprising thing, which just picking up on what you just said, the other surprising thing to me is how many amazing ways one particular aspect or one chart can. When you do client work, for me, it's 9 times out of 10. Amazing. I look at this person in the first 3 minutes of our conversation, I got him nailed, and by 20 minutes in, it's like, holy shit, you did what? You're what? And now you're going to, I mean, it's like people are amazing.
Wow.
And it's amazing how the same damn 10 or 300 planets, depending on what your techniques you're using, how they can manifest in an infinite variety of complicated stories.
So do you feel astrology actually helps you appreciate humans more or
absolutely.
life more?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I would say even from the very beginning of learning astrology, it allowed me to fully embrace the idea that people just aren't going to be like you, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think a lot of times when we're in our, I was in puberty when I started learning astrology, so you think like, I just want to make everyone like me, or why aren't they doing that? And you want to change people, and you can't change people. You have to be, understanding there's 12 archetypes, and people are just going to be who they are.
And most people actually assume exactly the opposite. Astrology pegs you, and you have to be this way.
Right.
No, astrology says, with the course of least resistance and no consciousness, I tend towards that.
Yeah.
But I now realize that there's 11 other ways to template this
Right.
this thing.
Yeah. And that's very generic, but at least I guess the key word here is tolerance. It just allows you to have a more open mind and tolerate other ways of being, that you're not having to push or struggle and make things into a certain shape, So.
What else do I want to ask you too? This is amazing. Like, this is so fun. Are you having fun? Are you
Totally
comfortable
fun.
enough?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. What do you wish, or what would you want every person who is pursuing the astrological path to keep in mind? What would you want them to know or have awareness of as they're beginning the journey?
There's no quick and easy
No,
answers.
that'd be a whole semester,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
Just give me
Yeah.
something.
Come
Yeah,
on.
that the shadow is endless.
Yeah, you gotta keep going. Keep going when you think, like what you were saying about people thinking they know it all. Just keep going. There's always more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It never ends. And also, I can't tell you, I've been looking at my own chart for 25 years.
Yeah.
It is consistently revealing new things to me.
Yeah.
And that's just my own chart,
Right,
right? To speak
right.
from an Aries moon perspective.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been looking at my chart for twice as long as that, and it still like reveals.
Yes.
It's like, how did I never notice that?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
the eerie thing, going back to the surprise factor, is that with some of these more traditional techniques, the mathematics is based upon the initial chart, so that this event that takes place up to even past your death, because that's what I'm looking at for this conference right now. It's like it was there from the unfolding, from the moment at the beginning, right? And so it's like, well, how amazing is it that you would have an event already foretold in that first breath just because of the unfoldment mathematics, right? And then you're thinking to yourself, fate or free will, and all of these like more metaphysical deep questions, and yet I'm just consistently astonished at how when you use the mathematics from that standpoint, it's like an unreal timeline, and yet it's like what we live as reality.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
like I said, either everything is connected to everything or it's not.
Yeah.
And it is.
So basically what you're saying is when you're starting out, accept that there's no real destination, that you're always going to be learning, that it's always going to be unfolding, that once you think you know it, you probably don't, and there's going to be something else
if
to
you-
learn.
There's going to be a conference to go to, and then someone's going to say, "Oh,
If you find a teacher who has all the answers, get the hell out of there.
yeah,
Yeah.
Gotta
There are
keep
teachers
moving.
like that,
Yeah.
but basically they're teaching the wrong thing.
Right.
Like someone can have all the answers.
Right.
yeah."
Yes. Do you guys want to come in the screen? Come in the frame and say hi?
A cameo.
We can just have a moment of Astrology Hub saying
Actually, what I'm going to do is get out of the screen, and I'll hold the camera, and you all can be in the screen for a
hello. Okay.
minute.
All right. Maddie, okay, yeah, good. Okay, just come on in. So this is the Astrology Hub family here, and we are all here together at the booth, and just excited to be connecting with all of you. Anyone want to say anything? What's been your favorite thing about the conference so far?
It's really hard to say, but
You said it so well.
well, I'm gonna have to pick meeting some of our team in person. Yeah, this is our first time meeting Jessica and Joe.
Yeah, just being starstruck.
Starstruck. So what strikes you about seeing an astrologer or someone that you've read their books or seen them online? Why do you feel starstruck? What is it about them?
Oh, they're real. They're human. It's like,
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
it feels so good to know that, oh, you're brilliant and you speak well, and I love hearing your brain and your mind, but you're also physical.
Yes.
You have a real body. It's great.
And this is my daughter Madeline, who is helping us at the booth, and Rick has talked about her referred to her as the Madeline the Wise, because I've often told stories about Miss Madeline and her wisdom, and it comes out all the time. Yeah. Joe?
Joe, we gotta turn the fluffy on you.
Hi.
Joe,
Oh, that's too close.
Joe,
That was very loud.
What's your favorite part about the conference so far?
Honestly, just trying not to cry. It's just so wild seeing everyone, and like my whole astrology story was the pandemic, and you guys have been I'm gonna cry. Cancer moments. But you guys have been my friends when I was alone.
And we love you. And here we are.
Wow. Wow. That's it too. That's what I was saying earlier, Rick, is that it's not just a person that you're starstruck, it's someone you're in relationship with because you've been listening to their words, you've been hearing their deepest thoughts.
That's what Jen said, and they're talking about you often.
Yes, exactly.
You know, Joe, that part about being alone?
Yes.
Don't take this wrong, but you still are.
I know.
Yeah, I guess the truth is we always are. Yeah. Okay. Well,
But
thanks
also
for-
not at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
If everything's connected, Rick, then we're all in this together.
Well said.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's a wrap.
Yay! Yeah, it's a wrap.
All right.
All right.
Well done.